know about you, I don't love waiting. Um, I was Nan and I were in an appliance store just this weekend, looking around, and the guy we were talking to, we asked about the price of a dishwasher, and he said, well, let me go back in the back and figure out what it is, right? I'm like, oh, here we go. So he goes back, and he disappears into the back, and we don't see him for a while. Like, it doesn't take this long to look up the price of a dishwasher, right? And I turned to Nan and I said, I feel like my time's being wasted, right? I'm not the only one, right? You know what I'm talking about when it just feels like somebody's wasting my time right now. I don't like to wait. I bet you don't like to wait either. No one likes to wait. Listen, waiting means that I'm not in control, right? Waiting means I'm not in control. If I was in control, I wouldn't be waiting right now, right? It means that I am not more important than other people, right? Because if I was famous, somebody would come and get me and usher me to the front of the line. That's what, if I was a celebrity, that's what happens. But I'm not more important than the people I'm waiting for. Waiting means that I'm not God, right? Now, obviously, we would all say, of course I'm not God, but sometimes it's easy to start to think that way. I'm not God. No one likes to wait. But this is exactly what it means to wait, why waiting is so important. Not only does waiting cause us to contend with our limits as humans, right? And waiting definitely makes us realize our limits. But waiting does something else. It's a powerful way that we acknowledge the value and the worth of other people. Have you ever thought about it that way? Waiting acknowledges the value and the weight, the worth of other people. I will wait for you. You are worth waiting for. Right? And most importantly, waiting is how we acknowledge and honor God. I'm not God. I do not require God to explain His timing to me. Why He's making me wait. I don't like that God's making me wait. In fact, I have some big questions right now about why God's making me wait for important things. But I am not God. And I am willing to wait for God because God is worth waiting for. Right? But listen, did you know that God also waits for us? God is God. And He doesn't have to wait, but He chooses to wait for us. 2 Peter 3:9 says this, the Lord is not slow in keeping His promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, He is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. Why does God allow suffering, waiting so long to wipe out injustice on the earth? What are you waiting for, God? Because He's waiting for humanity, because we are of such great value and worth to God. God is waiting for us. Sometimes when we have to wait for somebody, we become impatient, and in small ways and in big ways, we abuse them because they are making us wait. You know what I'm talking about? On the road, as we drive, in the store, in the line, maybe we roll our eyes or make a little grunt. It's just a credit card. How hard can it be? Let's go, right? In small and in big ways, when people make us wait, sometimes we end up abusing them. In our world, the things that we want, the things that we don't have, can lead us to various kinds of violence, right? It's the things that we want that we don't have yet that we're waiting for, and that can lead us to respond poorly. Sometimes being unwilling to wait leads us to abuse God. Ever heard somebody abusing God because they are being made to wait? I prayed for God to heal me, and I'm still waiting, and so I don't believe in God anymore because He didn't heal me. What we really mean is He made me wait. He didn't heal me as quickly as what I wanted. I'm still waiting, and so I'm out of here. For some, it's logically impossible for God to be all-loving and all-powerful and also make us wait while suffering and injustice remain. Right? Waiting becomes a logic for disbelieving God. I'm not abusing God. He's abusing me by making me wait. And it can feel that way. Well, this morning, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Sometimes we're waiting for something and we never even stopped to sort of realize what we're waiting for. We're waiting for something. It weighs on us. We have stress and anxiety about something we didn't realize, hey, I'm waiting for this to come. It's not here yet. What is the thing that's keeping you from experiencing wholeness, completeness? The word for that is peace, shalom. But Christmas is supposed to be a time about happiness and cheer, right? We sing happy songs, but, it's also about waiting. No, you can't open that present yet. Stop shaking the box. Just wait. Put it back under the tree. That's Nan talking to me, by the way. Is that mine? The meaning of Advent is waiting with anticipation for something that you long for, that you're waiting to finally arrive. That's the meaning of Advent. More specifically in the Bible, the Latin word adventus referred to the birth of Jesus, but more often it referred to the second coming of Jesus. That time when finally Jesus will wipe out all injustice, all suffering, and make all things new again. So in the Bible, there's nothing more anticipated than God's salvation through Jesus the Messiah. That is the thing that people are waiting for. The Bible tells us that 500 to 1,000 years before Jesus was born, the prophets looked into this foggy future, right? And they were looking into the future, and they knew that God had told them a Messiah is going to come and make all things right. They knew things were not right. Things had gone askew. They were taken captive by a foreign nation and taken off into Babylon. They knew things were not right. They knew they were waiting for something. We need somebody to help us because we're not in control of this situation. And God promised, I am going to restore you. I'm going to make all things right again through one who is the Messiah. But they had to wait. They had to look into the future. It was foggy. They couldn't tell, when is this person finally going to come? And this was Advent for the Jews. Advent, a time of waiting for 1,000 years for the Messiah. Can you imagine Advent being 1,000 years long, right? At least we wouldn't have to take down our Christmas lights, right? They could just stay up the whole time, right? But we might get a little bit tired of jingle bells after 1,000 years. But this was Advent, a time of waiting. But in reality, we do know what it's like to be in a continuous time of Advent. Because, like I said, most times in the Bible, Advent, this time of waiting, referred to the second coming of Jesus, and that's us right now, isn't it? It's been 2,000 years since we've been waiting for Jesus to come again. Since Jesus left, promising us, I will come again and I will make all things right, all things new. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever hardship or difficulty you're experiencing, it's not wasted. I will make it right. You will see justice. You will see restoration, but it's been 2,000 years, hasn't it? And just like in the Old Testament, today sometimes waiting can be hard, right? And for some, we can just stop waiting. I'm out of here. I can't wait for God any longer. And yet he calls us and invites us to a time of Advent, not to give up, but to wait. Look at what one of Jesus' 12 disciples, Peter, wrote about this waiting, this anticipation. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 10 says this, "Concerning this salvation, the prophets who spoke of the grace that was to come to you, these prophets searched intently and with great care, trying to figure out the time and the circumstances to which the Spirit of Christ in them was pointing when he predicted the suffering of the Messiah and the glories that would follow. Even angels long to look into these things." Right? And so Peter is talking about the Old Testament prophets, the time when the Spirit of Jesus spoke to them. And they wrote these things down in the Old Testament, predicting what would come. But there's this really cool dynamic where in the Old Testament, the Spirit of Jesus spoke to the prophets and predicted his own suffering and glory in the future. 1,000 years later, Jesus prophesied about Jesus. But that really shouldn't be a surprise because Jesus is God. He is eternal. He has no beginning and no end. Even though Jesus works through our own time and history, he is not limited by time, right? So Jesus prophesied about himself. But it gets even better because there is another verse that talks about the suffering of the Messiah and the glories that would follow, almost word for word. Let me read that for you. In Luke chapter 24, we read about two disciples who were walking along the road, and they were trying to figure out what to do now that this Jesus that they had waited for, not just them, but all of their ancestors waited for 1,000 years for this Messiah, and finally he came, and they watched him die on a cross. Can you imagine how disappointing that would be? What are we going to do? We gave up our jobs. We gave up our whole lives. In fact, our entire identity is built on this Messiah that we just watched die. And they're walking down the road. Now what? But Jesus came back from the dead, and he walked up behind them on the road, and he asked them this question, Luke chapter 24, verse 26. "Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. So Jesus appeared to his disciples, and he went back through the Old Testament, and he showed them, don't you realize the Old Testament is really one big neon sign pointing to me, showing that I was going to have to suffer and die for the world. But they had missed it. All the Bible, beginning at the very beginning to the very end, is the story of God restoring us and reclaiming us as his own and establishing peace through the suffering and the glory of Jesus. That's how it happens. Through Jesus' death, God conquered evil and death and made all things right. But it also means that the promises of Jesus tell us about our own future. The fact that the promises that God made to us, for God, those things have already happened because God is not limited by time. For us, like the prophets, we just look into a foggy future saying, Jesus, when? How long is it going to take? Our physical health, maybe we're waiting. Our family relationships, maybe we're waiting. Our job situation, or our finances, or whatever it is, we're still waiting, right? And like the prophets, we don't know when. We're hoping for that time. Jesus, I know you're going to come back and you're going to make all things new, but it's not here yet. We're still waiting. But for God, those things are already a reality because he's not limited by time. And so the promises he makes to us is not like promises someone makes who has no control in the future. They're just making promises based on hope. You know, when you're a kid and your parents say it's going to be okay, and then we say, you don't know that, right? You're trying to make me feel better, but you don't know that. You can't really control the future. Well, that's not the case with God. His promises are in his control because he is in the future. The things he promises us are not mere wishes. We can take them to the bank. Well, listen, waiting has two meanings, doesn't it? Waiting has two different meanings. It can mean that we're expecting the coming of something or someone. We're waiting for something or someone to come. But it can also mean that we serve like a waiter waits on a table, right? There are a couple different meanings. So as we wait for Jesus, we also wait on Jesus. We serve Jesus by building his kingdom until he comes. Don't let your faith grow weak. Don't let your love grow cynical. Don't let the comforts of this world lull you to sleep, right? Don't grow weary in doing God's work each day in your family, in your church, in your neighborhood. While you wait for Jesus, wait on Jesus. This week, how is Jesus inviting you to wait on him, to do his work in your family, in your workplace, in your neighborhood? So Advent is a time of waiting with hope and love and faith for the coming peace of a timeless God. A peace that we all long for. The word peace doesn't merely mean a lack of conflict. And sometimes when we talk about peace, mostly in our mind, what we can think about is that there is no more conflict. That's peace. On a global stage, we think about that. In Ukraine, now listen, for all the people who are living in Ukraine, they're okay with just the basic definition. We just want a lack of conflict. We're good with that, right? And we pray for that. But God's peace is so much more than merely a lack of conflict. The word is shalom, and it means complete wholeness when all essential parts are held together, especially in our relationships. The word peace in the Bible, that's what this means. Complete wholeness in all of our lives, physically, financially, relationally. Every part of our lives is not broken, it's not shattered, it's not in need in any way. It is complete. How do you know that you need God's completeness? Every day, every week, we are aware of ways that I'm not yet complete. And this is what God means by the word peace, when he will bring us peace. Don't you feel sometimes that your life is just spinning so fast that important parts of it threaten just to spin off into space? And certainly around the holiday time, we can kind of feel that way. Things don't get slower. Things go faster during the holidays. We've got shopping and we got meals and family gatherings and all the things that are going on during the holidays. It can just feel like we're just spinning so fast, like we're on a merry-go-round and something's going to go flying, right? It can feel that way. You know, the earth spins at 1,000 miles an hour. Why don't we go spinning off into space? Because of gravity, right? Gravity holds it all together. Gravity produces peace to the point where we're not even aware that we're spinning so fast, right? Listen, Jesus is the gravity that holds us together and maintains peace, even as our lives are spinning 1,000 miles an hour. And this was the promise of Jesus, God with us. Come to me, all who are weary, and we sang this morning, all who are weary, and I will give you peace. This is the promise. And it's not the removal of all our challenges. It's not the removal of all our suffering. It's not some kind of false promise that you're never going to have difficult situations in your life anymore. That's not the promise. The promise is that He will bring our lives that are scattered and frayed, and He will bring wholeness to all of the essential parts, shalom. So peace describes the ultimate longing of every human heart to be made whole, to have all that we need. But listen, what happens when we stop waiting for God? What happens when we give up, when we say, that's it, I'm out of here. I've waited long enough. God, you're wasting my time. I'm not waiting any longer. I think we can all identify ways that we try to create peace in our own lives without God, without waiting for God. Have you ever thought about that in your own life? Ways that I try to get what I need without God, without waiting for it. Maybe we try to find peace in our finances by cheating on our taxes. Maybe we look for peace by buying things and just racking up bills on our credit card. Maybe we look for peace in our families by yelling at our kids and telling them, why can't you just behave, right? Or the opposite, we just stick them in front of a screen, right? We just want peace. Can I just have a moment of peace? We try to find peace in our nation by maybe nasty yard signs or social posts. That can be ways that we try to get what we need or express our frustration or anger apart from God. Maybe we try to find peace from our pain with addiction to experiences, addiction to substances. Maybe we try to find peace from our guilt and shame, so we just run away from God, we run away from each other, we run away from life, right? All the ways that we are very aware that we are not complete and whole, and yet we're not willing to wait for God and get it, we just try to get it ourselves. Listen, there are two significant ways that we try to accomplish peace apart from Jesus, apart from waiting for Jesus. I'm going to talk about this morning. The two ways are that we try to get peace through strength, and we try to get peace through avoidance, right? Peace through strength or peace through avoidance. Remember, peace is not just the lack of conflict, it's getting what we need to be whole. Ways that we know what we want, know what we need, and we try to achieve that. In the world all around us, we hear this phrase repeated often, peace through strength, right? And it has a logic that draws us in, peace through strength. If we're just strong enough, then everybody else will just leave us alone. We'll just have peace. But this really isn't that new, this concept of peace through strength, right? The Roman Empire used to use this phrase, peace and security, so much so that they would print it on their coins, and it was their logic for warfare, for overcoming other nations, because what they would do is they would go into the other nation and they would conquer them, and what they would say is, we are bringing you peace and security. And so just let us rule, and when we rule, you will have peace and security. In our own individual lives, sometimes we wrestle with the path of peace through strength as well. It's a lot easier to yell at our kids and knock them on the head then go through the hard process of speaking with them, of holding them accountable, of loving them and being gentle, and yet also holding them accountable to boundaries that we set. Isn't it a lot easier? Just do what I say, bang. Right? Peace through strength. And the same is true in our marriages, at work, maybe even at church. In all our relationships with other people, we were continually tempted to achieve peace through strength. Do what I say or you're going to be fired. It's a lot easier than trying to work through the problem. Maybe yelling at our spouse, why can't you ever get it right? It's a lot easier than sitting down and talking something through and listening, right? We get this. Ways that we are tempted to take the shortcut of peace through strength. Violence, both physical and emotional, is always a shortcut around the hard work of peace in the way of Jesus through the self-sacrificing love of Jesus. It means to do it Jesus' way means that we don't always get it our way 100%. It means hard work. The second shortcut to peace without waiting for God is avoidance. We just go along to get along. We just give others whatever they want for the sake of peace, right? And if you're a conflict avoidant personality, you know what this is all about? Like, oh no, I would rather just walk away, right? Not my monkeys. I'm out of here. Avoidance or appeasing. Again, we know what this is like. If you're a parent, peace through avoidance can just be taking your kids and saying, here, just take the candy. I'm tired of the screaming. Just watch the TV show. I am tired of battling with you on this. With our spouse, just do what you want to do, whatever. Just give us some peace instead of doing the hard work of working it through conversations. And yet, avoidance is always the shortcut to peace that never actually lasts, right? Because it's not accomplishing wholeness, health, understanding, intimacy. It's not accomplishing any of those things. It is a false peace that maintains the brokenness. In our relationships, actual healing and closeness requires the hard work of conversation, of listening, of loving, of patience, right? Of living the way of Jesus. In the Bible, we see a description of the patterns of the kings in the Old Testament who also took shortcuts to peace. In 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles, it tells a story of King Ahaz. And King Ahaz was being threatened by an enemy. And God told him, trust in me, do it my way. I got your back. I'm going to take care of you. And King Ahaz was like, no, I don't want to do it your way. And he took a shortcut. He didn't follow God. Instead, he went to another nation, the Assyrians, who had a strong army, a strong military, and he said, you've got what I need because it's strength through peace, right? And so he went and made a pact with the Assyrians instead of trusting in God. And the prophet Isaiah came along in Isaiah chapter 9, and he spoke to Israel and said, King Ahaz, even though you didn't follow God, still I am faithful to you, Israel. I will bring one who will bring true peace, even though you're taking a shortcut. Let me read this for us, what we heard this morning. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. You will multiply the nation. You will increase their joy. They will rejoice in your presence as with the joy of harvest, as people rejoice when they divide the spoils. For you will break the yoke of their burden and the staff on their shoulders, the rod of their oppressors, as at the battle of Midian. For every boot of the marching warrior in the roar of the battle and cloak rolled in blood will be burning fuel for the fire. For a child will be born to us. A son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. And there will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from then on forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of armies will accomplish this. This is talking about Jesus 1,000 years before Jesus was around, before he was born. Jesus speaking about Jesus, saying, I will come and I will finally accomplish peace, the peace you're actually looking for. Jesus is the one who will make all things whole and complete, not only in our lives, but in the entire world. So Advent's a time of waiting for the Prince of Peace to come, right? But if we think that Advent is just passively sitting around doing nothing, waiting for Jesus finally to take us to heaven, then we've missed the point. While we wait for Jesus, we're called to wait on Jesus, doing the work of the kingdom. Jesus is not just simply sitting around waiting. He is active. He is at work in this earth, in our lives, in the lives of the people around us, calling them to give their lives to him, to experience his peace. Jesus prayed this, right? He prayed, your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? Right now, not sometime in the blurry future. So Jesus is at work, even while things still feel frayed and messed up and broken. Jesus is at work right now. Not only in our lives, but he wants to work through us in the life of your neighbor, in the life of your coworker, right? So 2 things. Let Jesus be the gravity that holds your life together in peace. Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. But this shalom, this peace Jesus promises is predicated on that first part, right? Come to me. When we come to Jesus, that is when we receive his peace. So this Christmas, even though times get busy, I just want to encourage you, how is your quiet time with Jesus going? How is your daily encounter with Jesus going? Are you coming to Jesus on a daily basis? Are you coming before Jesus and spending time with him, right? Read, pray, listen, do. Read, pray, listen, do. Read the Bible. It is God's word. And through God's word, we hear Jesus speak peace over our lives. Read, pray. Are you praying? Are you having a communication with the Prince of Peace? Are you listening to God's voice? He is not silent. Oftentimes we are not listening, right? And do. What is Jesus calling you to do? The second thing is wait while you wait. Wait on Jesus as you wait for Jesus. Waiting for Jesus is not passive. We're called to join his work of creating wholeness and restoration in a world of brokenness. And sometimes it can be a lot easier, like I said, just to simply blame other people. Well, you wouldn't be broken if you wouldn't have acted that way. Am I right? To look at somebody else's life and say, well, you made your bed, now you get to lay in it. It's not my fault. And we can dismiss people and not lift a finger to bring peace into their life because in very real ways they are to blame, right? And yet Jesus never looked at us when we were the ones that were broken and said, sorry, you are to blame. Instead, he lifted us up and he died for us while we were still sinners, the Bible says. And so he called us to a new mindset, a different mindset that doesn't weigh whether or not somebody deserves our love, our compassion, our own work of healing, of restoration. He doesn't say weigh it all out, and if somebody really deserves it, then get involved, right? He simply says, where do you see brokenness around you? Where do you have a voice to speak hope where somebody is hopeless? Where do you have a moment to give into someone's life where they don't deserve it? And join me in inviting them to the Prince of Peace to follow Jesus. Wait on Jesus as you wait for Jesus. There are four ways we do this, right? 3 ways that we do this. Pray, invest, invite, right? We talked about this a lot. Pray, invest, invite. Ways that we can wait on Jesus while we wait for Jesus. Who do you see whose life is not whole? Pray for them. It requires almost nothing. Pray for them. We merely have to be aware of something that somebody else needs around us. Pray for them. Invest in them. That could be something as small as taking Christmas cookies to them, right? Invest in a friendship with them. And invite them. Invite them to coffee. Invite them to church. Invite them to know Jesus. Pray, invest, invite. This morning, what are you waiting for? What is not right? What is not whole in your life? Bring that to the Prince of Peace and allow Jesus to be the gravity that holds your life together and brings you peace. Let's pray.